Welcome back to the EVLC podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Sandy Munro. Thank you so much, Sandy, for coming on the podcast today.
Well, you're quite welcome. I'm very honored and pleased to be here. Yep.
Okay, let's get started. For those who don't know who you are, could you please share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, so first off, I'm really old. And at one time I was a kid. And when I was a kid, around 9 years old, I started working on farms. I hated them. Okay, it was a lot of backbreaking work. Mostly I was picking tomatoes or picking tobacco or picking apples, whatever. I was a picker. And then when I was 16, my dad ran a tool shop. And so he said, I'm tired of you coming home complaining about working in the farms. So I'm going to give you a job as an apprentice. And I said, great. Then we found out that you had to be 18. So I was 18 for 3 years in a row. 16, 18, 17, 18, and 18, 18. And it worked out quite well for me because it gave me a head start over everybody else that had to go through a 4-year apprenticeship plan. So I got my apprenticeship done. I became a tool maker. I was pretty good at it, and everybody convinced me to go back to school. Maybe not the best choice of my life. I'm a firm believer that what you want to do is every morning wake up happy to go to do whatever it is that you've decided to do. But it had a lot of ups and downs. Eventually, I became the chief engineer of a machine tool company called Valiant. Valiant was a nice job, but Ford Motor Company, I had 100 and something people working for me, and that gets to be kind of old. Ford came along and said, hey, we'll give you more money, and nobody works for you, and you can do technical stuff. You can make machines work and things like that. So I thought that was brilliant. I jumped on that. I joined Ford Motor Company as a grade 6 engineer. And I worked at a lot of different places. I got a few promotions and whatnot. Anyway, I wound up in finance staff. And one of your questions here is, what was the biggest surprise of your life or something? That was the biggest surprise because I know nothing about finance. But I do know a lot about how machines work, and that's how they put me in there to make sure that when the company bought machines, the machines would actually work and whatnot. So that's how I got into finance staff. Then I started my own company, and that was at the behest of a guy by the name of Dr. Edward Demings. And he is the guy who, after World War II, turned Japan into the powerhouse it is today. They made very poor quality products, and he was brought over by General MacArthur, who was in charge of the word that they used in the olden days was civilize the Japanese, because we didn't want them to make wars again. So anyway, General MacArthur brought over Dr. Deming, and Dr. Deming and his statistical process control and many other things turned into what they turned the whole of Japan around. And since then, Munro and Associates, our company, I've gotten the opportunity to work on everything from Barbie to the space station. And that's not a metaphor. That is a real deal. We work mostly on automotive kinds of things, and I've specialized in electric vehicles. But for the most part, we work on, right now we're working on street cleaners, on electric street cleaners. We have a variety of different car companies that we're working with to help them improve their products. And I can also tell you that we're working on aircraft. We work on, again, kids' toys. We're doing lots and lots and lots of different things. And that's what I do like. I like to work on a variety of things because it keeps things interesting. And I think it keeps me young. So there you go. Now you know everything.
That's very impressive.
Very cool.
Yeah, it must be really nice to be able to work on so many different, or a big variety of things.
Yeah.
How did you get started doing what you do?
Well, like I mentioned, it started like a long, long time ago. And in life, I've found after a whole long time, in life, it's a good idea to find out the stuff that makes you happy. So I got started in life picking tomatoes. I didn't much care for that. And then I moved into tool making, and then I moved into engineering. And now I kind of run a fairly big company, and that all kind of evolved. It starts off, you're doing one thing, but if another opportunity comes along and it looks like it's a better opportunity, then you should jump on it. And that's what I did. I just moved from one opportunity to the next.
And what do you enjoy most about working at your company right now?
The fact that it's so diverse. Like I really like to work on new inventions, new products. I like things that are different, new and different. That's why I like to work on airplanes, like VTOLs, the vertical takeoff machines. I'm hoping that we can get a contract to design and build a new vertical takeoff machine that would, the biggest thing that I like is when I can work on something that's going to generally help the population. So I worked on an intravenous pump, and it turned out that when we got all done, it was easier for the nurses to use, but it's also neonatal. So you can put it on small children and not worry about the fact that metering the small amounts of medicine that they'd need will harm them, or in some cases kill them. So that was a big accomplishment for me. The vertical takeoff machine could be the ultimate ambulance. That would be great. If like say it's, rush hour traffic in Los Angeles, some kind of a terrible crash happens, how do ambulances and police get to these sites? I mean, it takes them forever to get to whoever's needing help right now. Whereas a vertical takeoff machine would just go up, over, down, pick up, over, out to the hospital. And that's kind of like, we need more of that. Helicopters are okay, but they take up a tremendous amount of room to bring in and bring out. So I want to work on things that are going to be helpful for the general population.
And thank you so much for that, for working on things that are going to help people.
And just like a following question to like the recall thing. I saw the video of you like looking at that electric airplane. How was it seeing it in person?
Oh, it's fabulous. I love that. That's the one from Joby, right? Or Joby, I should say. Joby. Yeah, so that's the first one to get certification. It's not into production with people yet, but it's going to be. And that will be allowing people that can avoid, again, the congestions that we've got on the expressways and whatnot. Cars are basically very, very expensive to move from one place to the next. You have to put down roads. There has to be people that are going to be repairing those roads. There's a ton of folks that have to be around to basically manage the road, the police and stuff like that. Whereas if you have a vertical takeoff machine, you pop up, you go over, you drop down, and you're in. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we should be aspiring to. We live in a 2D world, a flat world. What we need to do is take advantage of the three dimensions, if you were, and that means we've got to get into the air, and that'll avoid tremendous problems associated with traffic jams, accidents, and whatnot. Once you've got that third dimension, everything gets better.
Oh, yeah. So I know you like the part of your job where you get to help people. What is something that you don't like about working at your company?
We just talked about this, and Grace said that it was the right answer. So I am not a people person. If you want to know the honest to God truth, there's about 100 people that work at Munro, and there's going to be a lot more coming up. And like I said, I like the technical stuff. I'm very good at that. But I'm just not I was never popular as a kid. Never. I had acne really bad. When I was 13, I spent a lot of time in fist fights. And then I never went to a normal school. I went to a technical high school, and I had about 1,000 guys that I graduated with, 1,000 men. It was a tough environment. And then I went to a technical college, and again, there were no women there, and it didn't matter anyways. I couldn't have got a date with $1,000 bill clenched in my teeth. I was just an ugly kid. So I never really learned how to be a nice people person. I didn't date until I was in my 20s. So it's really difficult for me to sometimes be sociable. And there's Grace. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm a little too forthright. Sometimes people don't like my answers and stuff like that. So I'm not as I don't know. I'm not as personable as others are. Yeah. Yeah.
Who has been a positive influence in your life?
Okay, positive influence. There's been many, many people who have been a positive influence in my life. Number one was probably my dad. My dad was the best mentor I ever had. He's the one who got me into the trade. He did lots of good things. And so number one on the hit parade, for me anyways, was my dad. Probably the second most influential person was a guy named Father Stanley Smith. And he got me back into religion and talked me out of basically committing suicide. And then third would be Dr. Edward Demings. Dr. Demings was brilliant, really, really, really smart. He was a very old man when I met him. He was in his 80s and he died when he was 92. And I kept in touch with him. In fact, we had dinner together about a month before he died. He was very, very influential in my life. He reinforced everything I heard from my dad. Now, my dad didn't have an awful lot of education. Dr. Deming had at least 2 PhDs that I know of. He was really quite smart, book smart and street smart, and a lot of good common sense. So my dad knew what he knew, and he used to tell me things, and then Dr. Deming came along and he just reinforced it with the math that goes along with the theory. Yeah.
Wow. That's very inspiring. And going back, I know you started working since you were really young, but what was your dream job as a kid?
Yeah, this is one that I have a hard time with because when I was really young, I only know what I didn't want to do. Yeah. I did not want to pick tomatoes for the rest of my life. I didn't want to be one of those guys that sat around drinking beer with teeth that, well, no teeth or a couple of teeth. That is what I didn't want. I wanted to be somebody. And I didn't know where I was going to be going when I was 9, 10, 11, or 12. But once I got into the trade, once my dad took me out of the farm life and whatnot and stuck me into even the menial jobs were far more interesting as an apprentice toolmaker than they were doing manual labor. So I knew what I didn't want, and what I did want eventually came in my direction, and I just snapped it up. I didn't have a dream, as it were, when I was young. I was mostly just, doing what I had to do in order to get by. But as time went on and I got older, I'd see this opportunity or that opportunity or another opportunity, and I'd go, you know what? That's what I want. And then, even though sometimes it cost me a lot of money, I would move from whatever I was doing to whatever I wanted to do. And sometimes when you make those decisions, you take a pay cut, or maybe you don't have as much prestige, or maybe you have to work longer hours. But the ultimate goal is to become as happy as you can possibly be. And the best way that I know for doing that is by looking for the opportunities and then capitalizing on them. Move. That's the real answer. You can't wish, you've got to do. Doing and wishing. Do, don't wish. Yeah.
How did you learn to not let those opportunities slip by?
If you show up, you win. So people ask me all the time, well, what prompted you to do this, that, or the next thing? And I said, well, I was doing this. I saw that. I liked that better. And I showed up. Basically, showing up is almost, that is tantamount to success. People don't want to show up. They don't want to, they want somehow that someone is going to coax them to do their job, or someone will ask them to would you like your dream job? That kind of thing. It doesn't happen that way. Usually the opportunities are ugly because they're associated with hard work. Hard work and opportunity kind of go hand in hand. So if you don't like hard work, you're probably going to be one of those toothless guys that I used to see at the farms, drinking beer and saying about what they wish they'd had happen. Yeah. Wishes, it's good to have wishes, but doing is better to do.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger self? Probably not to be so depressed. Again, when I was a kid and I was in my teen years, I was depressed a lot. Not too many friends when you got acne. Not too many opportunities coming your direction. And there's an expression someplace in the Bible, and it says, "This too shall pass." Okay, and that's the truth. That is absolutely the truth. It may seem like a terrible day and your terrible life and on and on and on, but it all goes away. And sooner or later, like a year later, guess what? You're happy as a clam. And those things that you thought were going to be menacing and horrible, they've all gone. And the people who were nasty to you, well, they vanished as well. One of the things my dad said was, all you have to do is sit by the river, and sooner or later, all the bodies of your enemies will float by. And there's a lot to that. I mean, it's a metaphor. It's not for real, but yeah, a lot of people that were really nasty to me, they wound up again back to that guy with no teeth and drinking beer. They floated by. They did whatever they did, and they were mean to other people as well. And eventually, it all catches up with you.
That was very good and inspiring advice.
What's that?
That was very good and very inspiring advice.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed that.
Okay, so expanding on that, what would you say are the most important lessons you've learned in life?
Yeah, this is the one that that's the kind of the toughest. Probably the biggest lesson I learned is that lots of people will come along and tell you lots of things, and they sound exciting. They sound like, hey, this is the answer to everything. The more you get like that, the more information you get like that, the more later on you find out, hey, this guy, he was lying to me. this isn't right at all. What you have to do is you have to take all the advice you get and you have to really digest it. Don't just jump into it. So I grew up in the 60s, and in the 60s, everybody was doing drugs. Well, I didn't. I couldn't see any logic in it. I watched the guys that did do drugs, again, passing out, falling down, doing stupid stuff, getting arrested, and then ultimately winding in jail or in a hospital. And so where did we get that information? I mean, who told us about it? Cool guys. And usually it was the one that promoted drugs the most was one of my professors in college. He just thought that was the greatest thing on the planet. And so up until that point in time, I always thought teachers were telling you the truth. But when he said that, and a bunch of my friends or acquaintances then jumped on that bandwagon, they wound up losing. And I mean losing in a big way. One guy, his name was Wayne Lesperance. He was one of my best friends when I was in high school and early in college. And I was driving a sports car. I was in my mid-20s or something like that. And I come driving and I see him standing on the side of the road with a sign. I pulled over. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know where he was. The sign said car wash or Crossroads. Crossroads was where they tried to rehabilitate druggies. Anytime somebody says it, hey, guess what? Try this, man. It'll expand your mind. You know you're in trouble. This guy is not on your side. You want to run your tail off in a new direction. So that's what I learned the most in life. Not everybody is here to help you out. And people sometimes it seems like they're helping you out. Oh, they pat you on the head and give you stuff for free and whatnot. And the next thing you find out, they aren't your friend. They've got an ulterior motive, and that motive is not healthy. So getting out of there is a good idea. Yeah.
Definitely. So was there ever a point in your life where you felt like giving up?
Yes. Yes. There were several points in my life when I felt like giving up. But my toughest part, or the toughest part of my life, was teenage years. From 13, I tell children, young adults, the toughest part of your life is 13 to 21. 13 to 21. There are so many demons in the world that are going to try and put you into a bad situation. It's incredible. It's really hard to decipher. Now it's easy for me to spot a fool. But when you're young, some of these people, they dress nice, they talk nice, they got a big car, or they're popular and whatnot. All these things, and you think somehow that is the person you should take advice from. In a lot of cases, that is not correct. There's a lot of snakes on this planet, and they're out for what they can get out of you. And that's why it's very, very important to hold your ground in a lot of cases. So I will tell you, when I was a teenager, I seriously, I was driving a motorcycle, and I had a lot of motorcycles, and I was driving down an expressway, and I had a month of really hard times. And it wasn't hard from a work standpoint or anything like that. It's just that around me, everybody seemed to be getting ahead. Everybody had a lot of fun. Everybody was going to parties. I never went to any of them. And when you have something like acne, or something that isn't pretty, or isn't fat, like the latest fad or something like that, somebody's going to pick on you. And unfortunately, when I was a child or a teenager, I got a lot of that stuff. And so consequently, if somebody called me a name, I just belt them. I had a really short fuse, and my life was getting uglier and uglier and uglier. And I had a whole month of this stuff. And as I was driving my motorcycle, I looked down the street and there was construction, and there was a great big giant bridge abutment that was sitting, on the other side of the barriers, but I knew I could get to. And I went to the other side of the barriers even, and I was going to plow into that thing, and then it'd be all over. I wouldn't have to worry anymore. Well, I didn't do that. Obviously, I'm still here. And that kind of stuff, when you're picked on and you feel like you're an outcast and whatnot, that's kind of like when it's the toughest. But just like I said, that's when Father Smith bumped into my life, and he gave me a lot of good advice and told me that this too shall pass, and guess what? It did. And so you go back to who did you talk to and who gave you the best advice? You asked me that already, so that was one of the guys. Yeah.
And it seems like he came into your life at like just the right moment.
And that's the way it works. At the moment, if you are true to yourself and you're not you're not producing evil, chances are good you're gonna make out just fine. People can eventually, they can see that. They can tell who's lying and who isn't, who's kind and who's mean. All these things somehow all sort themselves out later on. But when you're really young, like I said, the danger years between 13 and 21, it's harder to tell because you don't have enough life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What advice would you give to kids who want to pursue their career?
Well, to kids that want to pursue their career. So you have to see a little bit to find out what career it is that you want. That's the first and biggest obstacle. What do you want to do with your life? And as you migrate through your teenage years, you get a chance to see a lot of different opportunities. Some of them are quick. Hey, I could flip burgers over at McDonald's and I can get money and free lunch. Okay. But then there might be another one. You could go over here and you'd, do something that might be less exciting, like cleaning floors or something like that. But it's a movement in the direction you want to go. So you clean floors, and the next thing you know, you're into maintenance, and then maintenance leads to something else, and the next thing you know, you might be a building supervisor or something like that. You have to look at the situation that you're in, and then continuously look at which do I like better, that or this, and then that or this. And we still do that. That's called matched pairs. And that's how we make huge decisions in industry now. We put down all our options and then we say, which one do you like better? This one or this one, this one or this one, this one. And then you add up all the numbers and you see that's the right way to go. And that's pretty much the way that it'd be good for a young person to look at it. Which is the right direction for me to go? What makes me feel happy? What makes me want to get out of bed in the morning? And that's pretty much it.
So you agree that they should go with their passion and what they're passionate about and then pursue that?
As long as there's money in it. So I will tell you, people say money's the root of all evil, or they'll say something like, money can't buy you love and stuff like that. Okay, that may be true, but I will tell you, money can buy the influence or the misery you want to have. And so you look at something like, for instance, have you ever been to Hollywood Boulevard? Did you ever go there at night?
No, I haven't.
No. Well, I'll tell you what. Hollywood Boulevard at night is quite the spectacle. You'll find people dressed up like movie stars, ancient, old-fashioned movie stars, singing, playing a banjo or piano, or not piano, but guitar or whatever. They're all doing something, dancing on the street. They're all trying to be noticed, and they're all trying to get into Hollywood somehow, right? Some of them are pretty good singers, but you know what? Your chances of hitting a gold mine, okay? So $70,000 for 5 years in a row as a Hollywood actor. You know what the odds are? Because I calculated them. 42 million to 1. 42 million to 1. Those odds are really bad. So you may be a good dancer or a good singer, or maybe you think you should be a football player. Really and truly, what you need to do is look real hard and say, what are my odds of becoming a professional football player? And you look at that and you say, what you really need to do is, if you're in high school or college or whatever, try and go or get into a practice with professionals. Watch what's going on. You think for a second that you can do what they do? Very, very few people are going to get out there on the gridiron. Very few people are going to be ballerinas or singers or actors and actresses. It's a very, very, very skinny market. And yes, some people do make it, but not very many. And the ones that don't, when you were on Hollywood Boulevard, did anybody come up and squeegee your spray stuff on your dad's side of the windshield and scrape it clean so that he can have something to eat tonight, maybe, and begging and on and on? Those are the actors who didn't quite make it. Yeah.
I do see that a lot, actually, since I do live in Mexico.
Oh.
So there's a lot of that on the streets here too.
Wow, I did not know that you were, I thought for some reason or other you were living in Southern California. I didn't know you were living
I do, I'm really close to the border. I travel
Oh, yeah.
A few times a week.
Hmm.
Yeah, so switching topics, what's the funniest thing that's happened while recording a YouTube video?
Okay, so we were, and you can see this because it's still on the, it's still up, but we were tearing apart the Ford Mach-E, and I think it was either the Mach-E or the Lightning, and we were tearing it apart, and the guys had set this up. So I walked over and he said, "Sandy, we want you to, we've taken the frunk, it was a Mach-E. We've taken the frunk apart. We want you to have a look at the cooling system and give us your first impressions." Well, I was expecting to see something similar to Tesla. I reached down, I grabbed the bucket, I pulled it out, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a mass of hoses and pipes going everywhere. And I said a lot of things, but they're all bleeped out. And I basically, I threw the bucket down. I said, "This is the stupidest design ever." And everybody started laughing, okay? And then we didn't know what we were going to do because there's no take two at Munro. We don't do that. That's what you said, that's what you did. So we said, "Well, how are we going to get out of this?" And I said, "I got a good idea." And I laid down on the floor and like I had fainted, okay? So we twisted the camera around and stuff like that. And then I'm laying on the ground. And then somebody, I think his name is Ben Lindemood, he yelled out, "Quick, get the Tesla octo valve." And they brought the octo valve over and they stuck it in front of me. And like they were reviving me with this octo valve. And I was breathing on it. And anyhow, I pretended like I was waking up, and I said, "Oh, thank God that we had the octo valve here to revive Sandy, because this cooling system is so bad." So that's probably the funniest thing we had. We've had other things that are kind of cute, but that really caught me unawares. That one, and we've had a lot of comments about that. People liked it. They thought it was hilarious.
I'll be sure to watch that video.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do for fun, and do you have any hobbies?
This was going to be a short one. I don't do anything for fun because every day for me is a good day coming to work. This is where I have fun. All my friends and acquaintances are here. So that for me is fun. I used to do a lot of things a long time ago. I used to be kind of like, I made furniture and carved statues and stuff like that. And I used to paint as well. But I don't do anything anymore except work. I really feel that right now, the country is in a situation of urgency. We need to move. And I probably got 10 years left. And when you're close to the finish line, as it were, you really get enthusiastic. Well, let me rephrase that. If you're working and what you do, you think is meaningful, and you get to the point where, hey, I outlived my dad. How much more time do I have? Then you get kind of urgent because I don't need money. I definitely don't need pats on the back and fame and stuff like that. What I want to do is I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a mark that's going to, maybe not, I don't need a statue. What I'm talking about is I want to leave something that says, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, okay, he died, but he did a good job. And that's kind of like where I am right now. I don't have hobbies. I don't, the most fun probably that I've had in a long time was with my grandchildren showing up. I've got a 5-year-old grandson and almost 2-year-old granddaughter. And so my wife and I were sword fighting with Alexander, my grandson, and running up and down the hill and stuff like that. So that was lots of fun, but I don't get to do that too often. It's hard to make my schedule work because normally I'm on the road and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven a converted car?
Have I ever what?
Like a converted electric car?
A converted electric car. I have been in several. And actually, you know what? If I had the opportunity, I would probably want to. I would want to try and get a hold of. I think it's a 1940 Ford. It's called a cab over Ford. It has a really cool style. The engine was garbage. I would take that really cool style. It's a pickup truck, and I would take all of the stuff out, and then I would put in a battery and electric motors, and I'd probably turn that into maybe my last project on the planet. But that would be what I'd really like. Now I've been in other cars like old Mustangs and pickup trucks, and one bread truck that I was in it was really, really cool. It had a lot of stuff going on in it. And so that was probably one of the best things that I've been in. But I'd like to have something that was way cool. And that would probably be my first choice, be that pickup truck. Yeah.
Do you have any trips to San Diego plans? Because
Yep.
I would want to invite you to EV West. My dad has a 1965 Volkswagen bus that is converted.
Oh, wow, that was a very popular van when I was a kid. Yeah. How long's your dad had it? Since 1965?
No.
Okay.
I think he's had it since since I was born.
Oh.
Maybe.
Well, and he's converted that to electric?
Yes. My dad's converted it.
Well, wait a minute. Did you help though?
Yeah, because I have a motorcycle. I did help myself build that,
Oh,
My dad got it off a friend named Joey,
yeah.
and it had like the bad battery, so we had to fix it. So we had to like put a new motor, keep the motor and put a new battery in there. Then put the motor, then put the tire, and what's super special about it is it was actually a kind of like a dirt bike, like a trials bike from Austria.
Yeah. From where?
From Austria. So
Austria.
like trials bikes.
Oh yeah.
And once super cool once we finished.
Cool. Do you take it off road?
Yeah, sometimes we go to my dad's friend's house that has like an off-road RC car track, and he has like a massive, maybe 100-yard, like just plain field with like off-road tracks, because some teenagers made tracks for their e-bike, so I just ride that track.
Oh, cool. So are you in the high desert then? In California?
No, we live in Encinitas, California.
Oh yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I used to drive scramblers all the time. Like I said, I had motorcycles from the time I was probably around 13, 14 up until it's probably your dad's age, around 50. And then everybody said stop riding motorcycles because they're dangerous. So there you go. Yeah.
And the next question is, so yeah, you have driven a computer. I saw the video of you interviewing Elon Musk. How was it interviewing him?
Well, Elon Musk is the smartest person I've ever met, ever. I've met a lot of really smart people and some people that are very influential, but I've never met anybody as smart as him. And he was very kind. A lot of people say a lot of things about him, but for me, he was very kind. And which one did you see? Which video of Elon Musk and I?
The SpaceX one.
SpaceX. So when we did SpaceX, he asked for me to sit around for 20 minutes. He wanted me to be around for 20 minutes to just talk about life in general. And he was very good at prompting information, sucking information out of me. And we talked for about a half an hour. And when we got all done, he said, okay, well, let's bring in the cameras and stuff like that. And all we use is Apple phones. We don't use anything else. And so we screwed the little tripod, sat it on the table, and he started laughing and he said, that's it? That's all you do? And I said, we're kind of like minimalists here. We don't have a big camera. It's too expensive, too heavy, too everything. And he thought that was just hilarious. That interview got cut down a fair amount because we were talking for a long time. After we were done, he asked if I wanted to stick around, and we did. And that's when they did a design review, and they talked about the next generation rocket engine. And I worked on rocket engines in the past, and they had a problem, and I made a couple of suggestions, and Elon Musk adapted them. He thought it was a good idea, and he put that idea into that rocket. By the way, we also sent him a list of about 250 ideas on the Model 3 that we tore apart that would help him out. We don't have a contract with Tesla. If I did that, then I would have an NDA. And if you have an NDA, you can't talk about those people, a non-disclosure agreement. So I don't actually work for Tesla, but we gave him ideas after we tore his car apart. And he was grateful, and many of those ideas were implemented. In fact, there's a bunch of different interviews where he said, Sandy pistol whipped us with ideas, with complaints about the cars that they designed and whatnot, on and on and on. So I have a good relationship with him, and like I say, he is the smartest man I have ever met. I have never heard him say anything that was untrue. That's another thing. Honesty is hard to find in today's world. So
that's super cool how he just told you all about like the next generation rocket.
Yeah, well, it was more than him. There was about 20 people on the phone and about 10 people in that room, and they're brainstorming how to build the new rocket.
Did he say when he might have thought about it, or like when he's gonna make it, maybe?
No, he didn't talk too much about that, but we all know that he wants to go to Mars. And if you're watching, I mean, he's already done the heavy lift, so it's kind of like inevitable that this will be something that's going to be into space in a very short period of time.
Yeah, because one day, me and my dad, on a week, me and my dad drove 6 hours to Vancouver Space Base, and we actually saw the rocket launch. It was just a bit too overcast, though.
Oh.
Vandenberg.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Yeah, I've never really gotten a chance to see the rocket launch, except on my cell phone.
We heard a triple sonic boom.
Wow.
Which is very cool.
Wow.
Because it sounded like two, but in reality it was actually three, because it just sounded like boom ba boom.
Boom ba boom.
That's what I heard.
Ah.
And also, it cut off like stage 1, and when we heard it, or the moment we heard it, it was actually one of the stages was actually landing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming back into the atmosphere.
That was way cool. That's really that's a momentous occasion to see something like that. Yeah.
The next question is, how are you making a positive impact in the world?
How am I making a positive impact in the world? Well, I talked a little bit about medical devices, but positive impact. We also work on a variety of other things. So we help people design cars that they can afford. It's great to have electrification, but if people can't buy them because they're too expensive, it's a problem. And that's when people come to us. And we improve the cost, the weight, the quality, and in some cases add features that don't really cost anything to the customer. And that's kind of like our positive contribution, as it were. But we also work on airplanes. We worked a lot on the 787. Boeing 787 is probably the best, the most fuel efficient, and probably the best from a pollution reduction standpoint of any vehicle that's out there. So we've had a lot of positive effects in pretty much any kind of industry you'd want. Yeah.
Well, that actually wraps up this podcast, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on here, and you are very inspiring with your story.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, and I hope you get a lot of hits on this. Yeah.
We were so happy to have you on the podcast and just have questions.
Well, thank you so much. Anyway, you guys have a great day, and like I say, I hope you get lots of views and lots of new subscribers. Thank you.